Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Wide Open Throttle, and I have the Motor Trend crew with me, and this week we're previewing Best Drivers Car Week, which of course happens all next week on the Motor Trend channel. Now, one of the questions we get asked most often is what cars are in, how do we select the 10 or 12 cars that we spend a week thrashing on to find out which one is the best driver's car. Well, let's start with the most obvious question that's going to be asked this year by everybody. Why no Corvette C7? And Ed?
Man,
I just bowl them under arm.
we wanted it so bad. We put the call in, had it up until what, 6 weeks, 4 weeks out. But the official line was the cars are being built in the Bowling Green plant. They come out of the factory, they go to headquarters, they get driven around by engineers to find little issues. Then they get sent back and get fixed. They have to go back to the factory apparently because that's the only place they can fix them at this stage because they're such early builds. And they literally could not get it to our event, and they missed us by a matter of days. And we know that's true because only a week later they had the C7 launch up at their proving grounds in Michigan. So they had to make a choice whether send us one or get all the vehicles prepped for their own launch event, so they chose their own. But we talked about getting a pace car because they were running Indy that week.
It's such a bummer too, especially having driven it like 3 weeks after the event and knowing how good it is. It's such a bummer.
Well, the real tease was they did send a Corvette. We did have a C7 at Best Driver's Car.
Yeah.
But it was the
Top
red
speed
car.
of what, 16?
The top speed
10.
was 10, although if you really pushed it, you could get to 11.
It was a photo. It was the marketing car. It was
It was the car from the Detroit show.
product
Red car on the
accurate.
stage.
You know, obviously looked right, but just was not
Electronically
a runner.
limited to 10 miles an hour.
No.
And 2,000 RPMs.
Yeah.
The most you can get the engine going was 2,000.
Great fuel economy.
Do you think part of the problem, or part of their problem might have been they were very, very worried about the first impression of the Corvette would be in a competition where it may not win?
Well, it's huge. I mean, yeah, to go straight, that being its basically first comparison, even though it's not directly a comparison, to have that be the car's very first, coming out party, that's a big one.
I just think that they were looking at last year like, wow, look what it's going to go up against, like a Black Series and a Porsche, and like they know all the hot new metal that's out there, and it's not just going to go up against like whatever you put a Corvette up against. It's up against all the exotics, and I think I don't know.
And Corvette doesn't have, pun a little bit, it doesn't have that good of a track record at Best Driver's Car.
There's also that.
The car's competed numerous times, and I don't think
sixth.
it's been better than
Sixth.
sixth place.
Well, we've never run actually just a stock, a base, even a base plus sport.
Right,
it's always been
Z06,
Z06 or
Z01,
ZR1, so maybe they were hedging a little bit.
And look, to be fair, we're taping this program now in August. Best Driver's Car, we did a lot of the work of that in June. And as of right now, I don't think anyone's had a C7 to do fully independent testing on the road and on the track of their choice. So far, the programs we've done have all been under GM's wing at the proving ground or whatever. So I've worked on the other side too. I've worked in the car industry years and years ago, and I know how much time and effort goes into launching a new car, and the last thing you want to do is
lose control
of the message early on. So yeah, I have no doubt we'll get a C7 and we'll be able to do whatever the hell we like with it.
Sooner than you might think.
And again, this is big. I mean, this is a brand new car. I mean, brand new. It wasn't a generation change. This is a brand new car. Right. They're going to make sure that it gets doled out appropriately.
But it's a huge bummer because we should have had it for this one because next year we're going to get Camaro Z28, which is way too early. So that's another car that's not there. No Vet, no Z28. And if you want the real corporate answer as to why no Corvette, we will very shortly here have GM's president of North American operations, Mark Royce, in here, and we can ask him directly. So.
Well, the other cars that people ask about too, 911 GT3, much the same reason.
And Turbo, which just came out.
Have both, again, at the beginning of August, as we tape this, are literally just come out.
That's what the viewers out there need to understand, is that just because a car showed up at the Geneva Auto Show months ago doesn't mean that it's anybody's
To be
hands.
fair, we never explain that to anyone. We never say, when you see a picture of a car on the internet, it's 7 months before we actually get one at the office. We'll fly to another country and test it, and it looks like we have all this access, and you know, really there's a guy from Porsche standing 10 feet off camera, like, you know. So yeah, so it's usually about 6 months after you see something debut that we actually get it in the office and can do whatever we want with it.
Just to clarify, no LaFerrari this year, no P1, no 918, no NSX, no Pagani of any kind.
No Pagani.
No Koenigsegg.
No Koenigsegg.
Why no Contenders?
No Bugatti.
No Bugatti Veyron.
Veyron.
And a lot of those vehicles, well, we kind of have a mixed bag
What
there.
about the long-term Veyron?
What about the you know, the Koenigsegg's of this world they're just not here. They don't sell them. They're not federalized.
Well, there's none in the United States of America.
But they're not road legal here anyway. You can't legally sell one.
And then the other point is these concept cars. Again, they're not in private owners' hands yet, so they're certainly not in press fleets either. So.
And cars like LaFerrari, I know how Ferrari's going to play this game. They did it with the F40 and they did it with the Enzo. It's going to be very limited. They're not even going to have a test car available. So
They never do.
If you see a LaFerrari test that we do, it will be done with a private owner. The factory is not going to give tests out to people.
Just want to jump in, like, you know, we'll also get a lot of people to say, like, why don't you have an M3?
Yep.
The car's been out for 4 or 5 years. Best driver's car, like our of the years, and you guys of course know this, is for what's new this year. So when the M4 or the 4-door M3 is here next year, it'll be in.
So we've got that clear. It's for all new or significantly upgraded performance cars released in the 12 months before the competition.
Yep, and if they're available in the fleet.
If
so
they're available.
No F12 this year.
That's right. Ferrari didn't have one.
No Lamborghini Aventador Roadster. Actually, they did have it. They just want to give it to us.
Wonder why?
I wonder why.
Okay, so we've got a pretty good idea of who's not going to be in this year's Best Drivers Car competition and why. So let's look at who is here.
So what do we have? We have
Well, the M6, finally.
we have an M6, but competition pack wasn't ready, so we
Right.
have that 560 horsepower.
Only 560
Monster.
horsepower. Yeah.
And you know, we had a little bit of debate there about why M6 versus an M5 versus a Grand Coupe, and it came down to, I think,
It seemed that a lot of
well,
people
it
had
was
driven
BMW.
the M6.
yeah. And
BMW said that this is their more focused, track-oriented car because we asked for the M5 last year when it came out. They didn't have a car available to us, kind of.
Well, it seemed that, and also people who have driven the M6 seem to prefer it a lot more to the M5. So that was our reasoning there.
There's that too. And it makes sense, right? It's the lightest one. It's a 2-door. It's not a 4-door. You know, carbon brakes.
But the number of doors or the configuration of the car doesn't matter. I mean, we have
We have an E63 wagon.
E63 wagon, which
awesome.
awesome.
Well, here, yeah. But so why do we have an E63 wagon?
Because Johnny wanted an E63 wagon.
Well, Johnny
there's
and
also
Scott
that.
Evans.
But I think we made a good choice because that car makes 577 horsepower, 590 pound-feet of torque, and has the new AMG all-wheel drive, where it's a permanent 67 rear, 33 front torque split. And so when you split that much torque, you always have 400 pound-feet to the rear wheels. Like it's
and you could put 2 kegs in the back and run the ring.
2. More weight, we can put at least 5.
GTR, which has been
Well, GTR track.
GTR
okay,
track
so yeah,
rack.
We've had many
people will
iterations of a
scream.
GTR.
Every GTR.
Every year, Best Drivers Car, we have a GTR. Well, it's because Nissan every year does an update to the GTR. So this year we have the track edition,
Yeah.
which
No
had
back seat.
had no back seat, the fuzzy mouse fur seats.
The Pep Boys special seats.
Yeah.
Well,
Ugly
it's
seats.
also got the revisions to the suspension.
Yep.
They've lowered the roll center at the front of the car. It's all subtle stuff around the car, but they're real changes. They're real incremental changes.
And as we saw comparing it to the R8, which is also in this competition, it was the fastest production car we've ever ran around Streets of Willow. It was faster than a Ducati 1198S, which is mind-blowing.
And as Carlos mentioned, the Audi R8 is in. That one's got the new
Be clear, V10.
Audi R8 V10 Plus.
Plus.
So the new dual clutch, which that car needed very badly.
Big
it
engine,
finally gets.
dual clutch.
And
Yep. Previous Best Drivers Car winner.
true.
All right. So.
Another
have-
previous Best Drivers Car winner, Cayman S. Actually,
And
it was the Cayman R.
No,
it
it was the S.
It was the
Cayman
S.
S and 911. So we had 2 Porsches this year.
Right, so we invited back the returning champ, or the last year's winner, with
Last year's winner was a C2S.
Yeah.
This is now a C4S.
Right, so we got the
we
all-wheel
all-wheel
drive.
and we have the Cayman S,
which is brand new.
Brand new.
And you did an ignition, I drove it on a track in Portugal, and
It's a wonderful, wonderful car.
It's all right.
it's a nice car.
And kind of going with what we had last year with the C63 Black Series, we got Mercedes' new SLS Black Series, which looked quite amazing.
Which is
and
gold.
Whoa, mama.
And huge.
That is
Well,
an
and-
impressive machine.
And I mean, I think we have to say kudos to Mercedes-Benz because they air freighted that car from Germany
For us.
just
here's-
for us.
I'll just tell this story. It's a little inside baseball, but the tragedy is that Mercedes calls us and says, "Hey, you want some video of it coming off the airplane?"
At LAX.
At LAX, they say yes. LAX says yes. LA Film Commission shuts us down because you have to get the permit in 7 days in advance. We got it in 6 days. It would have been so cool to
been
see
so
that
cool.
thing coming off an airplane.
Oh well.
Well, yeah.
That car made a rock star entrance. It really did, and I think just everyone who's driven it, it is a rock star, that car.
And
They took a car that a lot of people didn't care for, the SLS regular AMG, and turned it into a very, very special machine.
Again, the SLS has been here before, but everything on that car has been touched. The suspension, the engine, the transmission.
Okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Well, I was just going to say, why do we have an SRT and not a Viper TA or a GTS?
That's a great question. So we do have a Viper. We have the SRT, the base model, not the TA, not a GTS. We don't have the other vehicles because they didn't have them available.
And we did ask for the TA.
We did ask for the TA.
Even though you wanted,
A GTS,
because
adjustable suspension. Because this is best driver's car, not best track car, not best lap time. And having driven all 3 cars, and the GTS would have been the absolute perfect car for this.
Because we
setting.
do a component on the track, but there's a significant component on a closed highway with super.
and not only that, we also forget we're putting, was it 600 miles round trip there and
Yeah.
back? So there's a lot of, that's the problem with the Viper.
And we
It's sitting
yes.
in it for 300 miles.
And we should be clear about this. All the automakers who supply cars for the best drivers car competition know exactly what we're going to do.
Yep.
So
They send tires.
they send tires. They send
Engineers.
Some of them send
With
engineers.
screwdrivers.
So
Thanks, Mercedes.
when people say, "Well, that wasn't a fair competition," or "That car wasn't fair for that competition," you should be aware that
This is a factory stock vehicle. We didn't modify, we didn't
but
change the
also
tires.
The spec of the car, whether we got the SRT Viper or a GTS or a TA, was entirely down to
the manufacturer.
SRT. It was their decision.
Yeah, every best driver's car needs to have an underdog, something down on power that just seems like a reasonable entrant. And that's why we had the
Porsche?
Focus. Yep, not the Porsche. That's why we had the Focus ST. That's one of my favorite cars for the money.
Well, that's one of only 3 cars, I think, that had less than 500 horsepower in this year's competition. But best driver's car is not about which car waves the biggest check, which car has the most horsepower.
Right.
And we've seen in the past the Subaru BRZ. I think it finished 3rd. It's a brilliant.
4th, but Randy wanted it 2nd.
That's right. It's a brilliant driver's car. So being best driver's car doesn't mean having the most horsepower or the most expensive price tag. And the ST is there not just because it's an underdog, but it's there because it's actually bloody good to drive.
It's the best front driver
Yeah.
I can think of, period, right now.
Other nice drivers. We have some Brits involved.
Yeah.
A couple of very interesting Brits. I mean, as someone, both these companies have been on the edge of bankruptcy over their lives. But
Forever.
Aston Martin and Bentley rescued, some would argue, Aston by Ford and Bentley by Volkswagen Group. And these are arguably the best Astons and Bentley sporting cars that we've ever seen. So we have the new Vanquish, carbon fiber, blue.
Looks fabulous.
French
Sounds
blue.
fabulous.
Looks phenomenal.
French blue. Sounds good.
V12 power. Love it.
And the Bentley Continental GT Speed.
Le Mans edition.
Le Mans, the Wolf Barnado
Yes.
Le Mans edition.
Sorry, excuse me.
Because they have 3.
Quilted leather, ox blood
just
color.
phenomenal.
A little bit of, might seem a bit of an anomaly. I mean, that one's carting 5,100 pounds around. There are SUVs that don't weigh that much.
Yeah, well, but that's Bentley's. I remember talking to, I forget his name, but it was one of the professor, doctor engineers of Bentley, German guy. And I said, couldn't you do this with aluminum, like take 1,000 pounds out? And his answer was, oh, but that's what makes it a Bentley. is the weight. There's a feeling of solidity. And it was a Super Sport, the old one, and that's it. Then I took it up a mountain road, and it was like consuming the cars in front of me. I was like, yes, don't add weight.
You just start adding lead ballast to the back.
It felt so good.
And last but not least, a car that I've probably been waiting 20 years for in terms of my journalistic career. I've been reporting about this car for 20 years. Jaguar F-Type. It's finally here, and we finally got to drive it. I think that was one car everyone was pretty excited to get.
And to be
into.
clear, F-Type V8S.
Yes.
So
Right.
top of the top, the most sporting,
Right.
craziest exhaust cat.
Maybe the best sounding V8 on the market.
Maybe the best sounding car.
I don't know how that's legal.
It sounds like a small war's erupting
Yeah.
behind you every
Sounds
time.
like a guy with a Glock is just firing it off in your ear. I mean, the thing is like It sounds so good.
So to recap, in alphabetical order, we had an Aston Martin Vanquish, an Audi R8 V10 Plus, a Bentley Continental GT Speed Wolf Bernardo Le Mans Edition, BMW M6, Ford Focus ST, Jaguar F-Type V8S, Mercedes-Benz AMG E63 wagon with the AMG S package, right?
S model.
S models.
Yes.
It only
Extra
comes like
power,
that, right?
In the U.S., it only comes like that. It has an S badge in front of AMG.
The Mercedes-Benz AMG SLS Black Series, Nissan GTR Track Edition, Porsche 911 Carrera C4S, Porsche Cayman S, and the SRT Viper.
Now that is almost $1.9 million worth of cars. Average cost about just under 160 grand, and there's 6,147 horsepower in that lot. I mean, the average horsepower of that group is 512.
awesome.
And I keep saying this for all these doom and gloom merchants that say, the EPA and unleaded gas and government restrictions. We have a field of 12 cars here with an average horsepower of
And
512.
if you threw out the Porsches and the Ford, it would be like it'd be 600.
Yeah, they're thrown off the curve.
This is a super dirty dozen for sure.
Absolutely. So, Best Drivers Car Week airing all next week on the Motor Trend channel. We have different programs coming up every day of the week. You'll find out which is Motor Trend's 2013 Best Drivers Car next week. See you then.